As you know, he's, I don't need to say it because that's the reason you're here, one of the really great architects, of the contemporary architects in Portugal. And every time, if I have to see that, if I say that he's a very good architect in Portugal, that means immediately that he internationally, we are talking also about a great architect. And why? This is really because all the generations that in Portugal have been really working and developing their thoughts and their architecture in the last, say, 3 decades, have achieved such a high level of quality in architecture, in the way they approach in not only architecture, also teaching, like in the case of Carrillo da Graça, that becomes somehow a really unexpected, absolutely quality in a relatively small country as it is Portugal. So the fact of having here today Carrillo, that is, by the way, linked also to the exhibition that many of you were the other day in the inauguration, the opening of Álvaro Siza, links it to this question that architecture deals, in the case of his work, with very strong and rooted elements. I mean, the work of Carrillo da Graça, as you know and you will see, is deeply connected to a place. It's also deeply connected to something that is in a way very common to the Portuguese architecture, which is the restriction or the constraint in the elements they use. Or in other words, if we can say it in other words, the being aware of how working within limits makes the architectural work even stronger. In the case of Carrillo da Graça, I would say that the material becomes immediately a part of the conceptual architecture, the conceptual space, and the light. And so natural light, material, and place, it's always immediately linked. So I think it's a real a great opportunity to listen to his work. You know that his work has been published everywhere in most of the architectural magazines, also monographs by Electa, I remember one, and many others, I'm sure. I'm not going to mention the many prizes that Carrillo da Graça has had, but I remember still some of them, like the FAT, or like some of the Miss Van der Rohe nominations, or recently I remember in Rome, because we were there,
Piranesi.
the Premio Piranesi, and so on. But all these questions at the end make sense only when you listen to his words and to the way he approaches architecture. And for me, it's a real pleasure to have you here, because I have to say that, as you know, we are in a way neighbors, no? Being from Spain and from Portugal. And we have been crossing one way or another our careers, having, by the way, many common friends and being here or there in many cases, but we never met. So actually, we met only a couple of hours here today.
In the corridor.
And I think that to meet here in the UDK and in Berlin expresses very well the spirit of this international university and the international city that is Berlin. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your work. Thank you very much for your words. It's the second time I come here to UDK. I've been here some years ago, invited by Vilarets, and I liked very much to come with such a warm reception that I'm very glad. I like very much to discuss architecture. If you want to make some questions during the lecture, I'm always ready to answer. That's what I like most in this lecture, is to be able to answer to the questions that you pose. I'm going to speak a little bit in the beginning about Lisbon, before 2 images of New York and then Lisbon, to explain how I do work. This is in red, the Broadway Street. the Isle of Manhattan. And I like that very much, the fact that this line is more or less always the highest line in the island. And maybe one of the oldest streets. And when you go down or up the Broadway street, you always see the streets descending to the water. And I put this because I always look to the things that exist as if I was trying to display or to show the beauties I can find everywhere in the world. And also this street has in lots of points where the Broadway meets the grid, some of the more intense architectures in Manhattan. This is Lisbon. And in Lisbon, we have incredible topography. We have this, let's say, 7 hills and the valleys. And even if we wanted to build a very simple or a very clear city, the topography makes everything baroque. And you have always very different points of view, and you have the beautiful light that is reflected on the water of the river. And this is an incredible geography or topography. And here you can see the valley lines in blue, and then the upper lines of the topography in red. This is part of a work I have made with this model, for instance, with a landscape architect that works very often with me, João Gomes da Silva. This is the castle site. And this is San Francisco, and you have the 2 main valleys of Lisbon, and all these little valleys that come to the river. And in the other side here you have this upper space, and the other side you have another valley, and this is a very clear definition of the geographical space of the city of Lisbon, with the valleys in blue. We were studying, this is more or less the space where the airport is placed, and at that time they wanted to displace the airport, and we were trying to find new occupations for this space. These are the spaces of the port that are almost horizontal. Here we displayed the main castle in this main space, and then the 2 walls. This is the first wall, and the 2 walls that when you visit Lisbon, you can find these walls very clearly, because even if sometimes they are broken, you see lots of these walls that are always there. And then you can see the airport and the succession of these grids that built the city from the river to these higher spaces. This is a model of the medieval city before the earthquake that made the reconstruction of all this almost flat area with this space that is the square connected with the landscape, with the production, and there the square of the power with the King Palace connected with the river, with the water, and with the sea travels. And here you see the castle. I like very much this plan, where you can see very clearly the topography, and then you see the city that is beginning to be built upon this geography, this landscape. The castle, this area that was rebuilt, and you see in the valleys and also in the high lines of the topography, you have the sometimes more ancient and more persistent streets that still now create the main grid in the city. And I like very much this drawing because it puts in the same level the topography, the landscape, and the building of the city. Also, this plan is very interesting because you see in yellow the areas that are rebuilt after the earthquake, also these expansion areas of the same period. You also see that some of the things remain more or less in the same places. And also here we can understand that the older streets remain, and then the city is built in the spaces between the older streets that are public streets, of course, and then you can organize the other spaces. And if you look to the topography and to the structure that the topography clearly defines with these main streets, the older streets, you can understand that we can imagine always very, very simple operations that from the beginning build the city of Lisbon. For instance, here, before you had the beach, the sand, and after this was built the other side of the street, and then they put earth, and the city goes on, and now it's absorbed as a normal space in the city. This is the project for the port that we are going to see for other reasons. This work is after a competition in 2008 for the musealization of a space that was an archaeological site inside the Castle of São Jorge in Lisbon. This is the site. After we come back to this kind of images to speak about these spaces. And the space we are going to work is this one. Here we can see in more detail the two walls, and the ancient wall and the castle. And after we are going to see how the city absorbed the wall and rebuilt all these spaces. This is in the beginning of the 20th century, and this is the site, more or less. It's inside the castle, and with the beautiful pine trees over it, as you can see here. This drawing shows the monumental scale of the main square to the water, facing the water. And you can see that this space, even if it's not so big, the two houses we are going to see were in the 11th century very important in Lisbon for sure, because it's the main space of the city at that time. This is the main church. This was the situation the first time I went there. They found the remains of two houses, Islamic houses, with the patios you can see here. And the archaeologists had remade already the walls, because the walls were almost nothing, and they made the walls to make it more more easy to understand. They made it freely with the same stones they found all around, and they wanted in the competition a protection for these two houses. This is the model of the existing excavation. Here you can see the two houses. This was a drawing by the archaeologists, a kind of conjecture of what the houses were, and we thought that it was interesting with a certain abstraction of some of these details to protect the ruins with a kind of a very big model in real scale that can make us imagine the inner spaces and the patios, and also protect the ruins that exist there. Since they found frescoes in these very big rooms, these rooms must have been beautiful, and it was very important to protect these spaces. So this is the first model we have made. The idea was to build this in a very light way, as if supported by 6 points where we had not found the remains, and with this to explain the houses that existed. And this is the drawing of the two houses with the patios, and this is the wall to define the space we were going to show, to display. And this is a space to walk around with the stone of the city, paved with the stone of the city. A more detailed plan. A more detailed model. It's very important that the existing walls are very well protected, but the structure is reversible and never touches the existing walls. After construction, we have always 15 centimeters between the existing, let's say, walls and the model we have made. And this is the system to protect the difference of levels. And as you see, this is a very beautiful space with the castle all around. We arrive from here, from stairs that exist here, and we see this space from the wall. This is the more deep excavation to the prehistorical times. The houses are from the 11th century, and this goes much deeper. And here you have the different levels. The wall system in corten steel. This was made to protect the pavement we found here, that is reflected on the black mirror, the mosaic that we found here. The construction system, this is the steel structure, the lighting, polycarbonate, and the wood shading. And then you have aqua panel. During the construction, usually at this point, everybody thinks this is not allowed. And finished. This is the competition. Now I finished the construction project, and next year maybe it's going to be built. Now we were in the castle in Lisbon, and this is the intervention area for the competition for the cruise terminal. This is the area we have seen in this plan of the 17th century. It was inside the water. In the same plans we have seen. Maybe I'm going to change this because it's not always working. This is the plan for the port I have already spoken, and this is the intervention area. Some of the buildings, this is the old custom house, were built upon the river. Now we have land for half a kilometer, more or less. And also this railway station was built upon the water, let's say. This is the construction of the port in the beginning of the 20th century. Some images of the area. This is the works they were doing, and here the dock that they put earth inside, but we wanted to use in another way. The dock with the water. But we thought it was interesting to create a kind of square with this ancient building. The water was arriving here, as you have seen in the photographs, and to put the walls of the dock to be seen, and to put off some of the earth, and to put some water inside. And to propose the littlest, the smallest building that appeared in the competition. It was an international competition. And we tried to do it very, very small, and to reveal these walls, put the parking in this area and to think in this space as a part of the city where you have a green park along the river that you can use every day. And also these spaces we are going to build when the cruise is not, when the cruises are not arriving, we can use them as spaces for other activities. This is the, let's say, the ancient city that is a kind of amphitheater or auditorium looking to the water, to the river. And the idea was to inverse this site and to put the building looking to the water and also to the old city. This photograph was from the competition. We had to do a photo montage upon this. And we put this kind of green park, and we see a little bit the dock and the building that is only with air conditioning in the areas that is completely imposed, and the smallest it was possible. I thought this was an occasion to create spaces mostly to the city as these spaces, to reveal the presence or the memory of the dock, and to do the building with a very big, let's say, freedom, because we were inside the green park and aside the water. This section was very important to show that we are not intruding the established views from the city to the water. And also here we see that we more or less create a natural relation with the city inside the green park. These are some drawings of the competition and the photographs of the models. And this was the other photo montage they asked to understand the relation of the building with the ancient city that is very beautiful, as you can see. And these are always images from the competition that are now not completely updated. But we can imagine that the relation between the ships and the city is much more important than whatever we are going to build in the space between. And now, last year, we made another competition for the area. That is, more or less, here we have the cruise terminal, and this was the other area near the main piazza square. Here we have the medieval city. This plan is from the medieval city, but the competition was for this area here. Here you can see the wall, and the wall was rebuilt with buildings and palaces all along this line. But since the line is the arriving of the slope to the horizontal space, it still exists more or less like this today. This is the space of the competition in the end of the 16th century. Now it's much more built, but the proposal we made is to create this kind of available and empty space for the city that connects the old city with the river. This was the port that worked every day, because here is the port for the big travels with this kind of ships. This is the King's Palace, and this is the customs house, and this was the port for every day, and with the space to do the markets and so on, and fairs and so on. The main square in the Middle Age, and here the space I'm going to speak. This space. And here, in the end of the 19th century, very much built. We are going to see some photographs of these areas, and always the line of the wall. This is the space. This. And the competition was for this public space and this dock. In the other dock was the competition for the cruise terminal. So, as you can see, I have a very big responsibility. This is an ancient photograph from the 30s of the last century with all these buildings that now does not exist. These buildings are demolished. This, all this, and also this huge building was demolished. This is inside that block, let's say. This is the so-called Casa dos Bicos that is now bigger, and is the Saramago, José Saramago, the writer foundation. This was under the demolition, during the demolition of the custom warehouse. Here you can see the Casa dos Bicos, and this plan is more or less the plan of the wall that is absorbed by these buildings. This in the 80s, 60s. I think it's 60s. Full of cars, the main church, and there the castle. This is more or less the existing situation. For the competition, they said we can work in all this space, and they want to demolish these buildings and to use this dock for multi-purpose. This is the first drawing I have made with the Saramago foundation, the line of the wall, and the idea of having this space where you have seen that little block that was demolished with the special trees in this triangle, and then to build the square with pine trees, since we don't have trees in this huge and beautiful square. I thought it was interesting to put some pine trees in this other square. These are the drawings for the competition, not very clear, and the work is having a very big evolution, is changing very much, because in the competition they asked for 2 buildings for parking lots, and now they thought it was better to put it more or less underground, and I'm much more glad with that idea and solution, and we are working on that. The idea is to protect a little bit the square from the traffic noise, and then to create a space with pine trees, with this opening to the Saramago Foundation, and with the very different trees on that side. These are the volumes that now we are not going to study, that they are not going to be built. And what we are studying is a parking area only a little bit underground, but that creates a kind of protection to the noise of the road. And then this inner space very open to the river and to the city. This is a section in the competition with the pine trees. And the other section here is the river, and you see it's a little bit deeper, the square with the pine trees and the different trees the other side. This is the bookshop for the Saramago Foundation with this caryatid that is an elephant. This is the form of the square and the bookshop. Saramago asked to be buried in the street near an olive tree that came from the little city where he was born. And I proposed this bench in stone to protect this area. This area is already existing. He is buried there. This was an image for the competition, still with the volumes for the parking lots. This is an ephemeros work I did in Lisbon this year. It's a lounge for a week where they made lots of exhibitions and visits to ancient buildings and music concerts and things like that. This is the Rocio, the square, the side of the land, and this is the more ancient street in the valley, and this is the site. It's a very simple figure, let's say. The base was built with concrete, but separate from the pavement, and with lots of things inside to be easily demolished. It was put in place during the night, and in the morning was like this. This is a beautiful site. And then we put a very light structure with a kind of plastic mirror. It's a film that reflects, and it's in tension with this frame, this steel frame. And as you can imagine, it was a very big attraction because people from the outside, in the mirror, they seemed very elegant, and inside they were very, very fat but very happy. The effect was incredible. And you can, when we are inside, we can hear what people is saying all around. And we can see the buildings of the city all around. It was a very interesting experience. This is a work for the Évora Historical Center. We made in 2010. Maybe it's going to be built, but I'm not yet sure. But I'm going to show mostly one part of the work, that is the system of protection of the ruins of a Roman temple in the center of the city. The city is beautiful, is a World Heritage by UNESCO, and we have worked mostly in this more important area of the city, inside the ancient wall. The skyline. This was the model we made because at that time, I think now they are not going to do it, but they had to remake all the infrastructures of this area. And for that, we had the opportunity to think on the different spaces and to propose different things in a very conservative way. But now I'm not sure they are going to do this. Maybe they are going to do what I'm going to show now around the temple, the Roman temple. This is the plan we have made with all the ground levels of the buildings of the city, with the wall. And this is the area of the Roman temple. We thought that it was interesting to introduce the pine trees and the cypresses to create a kind of image that we can see from the outside, and that creates a kind of clear image like the old cities in the Mediterranean area. In the upper areas, lots of times they have this kind of trees. And we thought it was very interesting to begin with this. The temple in 1037 was built and rebuilt, as you are going to see in the next image. And in the 20th century, they demolished everything that was not Roman. And the ruin remained like this. It's beautiful. This is an ancient photograph. But since it has a very important position in the center of the old city, it has a very strong presence. And this was an ancient photograph without the stones all around, with the earth, with the stones. But we always see that something of the ruin was maybe not so correct, because the ground was maybe here at this level. And in 1997, the archaeologists made some excavations and discovered that a tank of water was surrounding the Roman temple when it was built. And this I thought was very interesting because the water was maybe reflecting the temple. This is another drawing of the archaeologists trying to understand. This is the excavations they have done, but trying to understand the space in the Roman times. And this is the only photograph we have of the excavation with the tank. And we thought that maybe this idea of reflection was really interesting. This is the actual situation. We would like to not to have this and to put the protection at this level. We thought that maybe we can do it with a kind of like an artistical installation. If we keep everything that is underground and we put a kind of steel tank with very little water exactly at this level, but in a reversible and ephemeral way, just as if it was an artistical installation there. This is the model we have done. The idea is to go down one step from the stone to the earth that surrounds the temple, and then to have this kind of mirror made with water that reflects the ruins and protects also the ruins from the intrusion of tourists. And it creates a kind of void all around the ruins. And enhances the verticality of the columns and these elements. And when you come down to the earth, and then you have this structure that disappears and reflects the temple. These are the details. This is like a table with water that never touches the building, and everything is left there, and then we go down to the earth. Here we have a bench and the earth and the water. This is the pedestrian bridge that is in the poster of the lecture, built between 2003-2009. This is the highest mountain in Portugal, the Serra da Estrela. That is a very beautiful mountain. And then you have a huge valley that is very fertile. And the city of Covilhã is between the mountain and the valley. And they asked me to, in a plan made by an architect of Lisbon that is in his 90s and that I like very much, he was doing a plan to create the possibility to walk in the city and using this kind of means like a pedestrian bridge, not to have to use the car to go all around. This is a kind of schematic explanation of the project, where you have the mountain, you have the little valley, here is the historic center of the city, and then you have the huge valley, Cova da Beira that is very fertile that I referred and we are going to see. And the idea was to create a kind of arch, a kind of orthogonal arch, rectangular arch, that connects both sides of this valley and also refers to the relation between the Serra da Estrela through this valley to the huge valley. And then the curves come to connect this letter P that creates this position orthogonal to the little valley to both sides of the valley. This is the main space of the bridge, and then the connection to the municipal swimming pool and to the street in the side of the historical center that we are not going to see very much. And I come again to Pina Bausch to try to explain the curves. Because the first time I explained this project in Italy, my friends were very upset because I used to do always orthogonal things, very simple, and now I was using the curves to arrive from here to here. And this is the rectangular arch I was referring. Here you have 70-something meters height and 225 meters from one side to the other. And we have to put another columns that I want to have with plants all around. But this is the statement, let's say. These are the columns that I like, and that one I don't like so much. They are very different. Everybody is very intrigued with these two columns. The bridge is made with steel and with the concrete inside the two main columns, and that ones are made of concrete. This is the section with the main beams, and then you have wood and light, like this. During the construction, now you can see a little bit the huge valley, and this valley that is built and rebuilt by man with the walls of granite. Now in this picture it does not seem so beautiful, but this is very beautiful. And this is the side of the historical center that you cannot see because you have these banal buildings all around. Here you see the bridge with the mountain and the valley. And the bridge is painted white in this plan that has 225 meters with 1.70 meters as the columns. And this works as if it was a sheet of paper with these impossible dimensions, because in the intradorso of the bridge you have the black color. And these are the ugly columns that are going to be recovered by nature one day. Now we see a little bit more the construction of the valley with these granite walls and always the mountain. It's like this when we go down the valley. It's incredible because it's as if we changed the century or planet. And you have the same granite there and here, everywhere. This is the last project. The CEO of Portugal Telecom went to this city of the bridge because he has chosen this site for the availability of the site and also for the climate. And he went there to visit and he saw the bridge and he decided that he wanted me to do the project. It was very, very interesting. I was very glad. This is the space for this project is a dismissed little airport in this huge valley. This is the city of Covilhã, where the bridge is more or less that. And here we are again in the mountain. We have the mountain. This was a photo montage of the bridge, and there you see the airport. And here we are upon the site, looking to the mountain and the city of Covilhã. The bridge is more or less there. This is the area to study around the airport. And the project is for a huge data center with these technical buildings. These buildings are usually like factories, very practical buildings. That the idea, the main idea in, let's say, a structural concept is that you have to have the electrical power and to put away the calories that the computers produce. This is full of computers, and so you have to come with the electric power and to dissipate the calories that are generated inside. And I thought it was interesting, and also we have 700 people working here. I thought it was interesting to create a compact building with a free cooling system for the climatization and with water that is used also to compensate the calories that are produced inside. And also, I thought the presence of water was interesting for people that is working here, that is facing the water and the technical buildings, and also looking to the mountain, the other side. The first phase, that is more or less one of these buildings and this one, is already built. And the others are waiting for the business. The concept of putting the water is something like this dam in the mountain. And the organization is completely incredible because we have to be sure that we have always the power, the electric power, and we have always the possibility of getting out the calories by free cooling. This is the main levels with the free cooling both sides and the computers in the center. And here the working spaces. Under the water we have all the work that has to be done to maintain the technical buildings. And here we have people working. This is a drawing we made in the beginning with the mountain and the buildings. And the building is more or less, the plan is a square, and the height is half the square. This is the building already built inside the valley. This is a little bit proeminent in the valley. We don't have yet very good photographs because it was inaugurated very recently. This is the entrance. If you see a little bit through, you see the water and the technical building. This is the entrance, and you see the water. And that's all. Thank you very much. If you want to ask something or to... Yes.
With your projects, what is existing at the fields and the spots where you are developing something naturally?
I could not understand. Excuse me.
What is your idea or philosophy of how you want to react or treat all that is existing when you're developing a project?
Okay. When I made the introduction with the interpretation of the city of Lisbon, I was trying to state that I like very much the relation between the landscape, what exists, what is built upon the landscape, and to try sometimes to destroy things to make more clear what exists, sometimes to build something the less possible to explain the situations I'm dealing with. As if I was marveled with what exists and wanted to show it and to reveal it. Okay. Another questions or intervention? This is my room.
What happens to the old cruise terminal? Was the
To the old?
the old bridge?
Yes, it is still there, of course. And since there are lots and lots of cruises arriving to Lisbon, they are going to build this one and to keep the others, and they are going to use every space to arrive with the cruise ships. Another questions?
We're talking about these competitions close to the river, Tejo. Are they going to be built? What's the situation? Who won the competition?
The one of the cruise terminal is going to be built, I think, I hope, because they are now doing a competition for the big company of cruise travels that is going to exploit and build the building, and I finished the project. The other space is more or less the responsibility of the municipality, and I'm now doing the project, and they say they are going to build it, so I hope so. Yes. Well, another question?
When you present your projects, there is one of the lectures where I have seen more images of the pre-existing situations. You constantly refer to the historical plans, to the historical photos, and not only one or two at the beginning. It is constantly coming in and out. This is one thing. And the other one is equally the landscape. It's constantly present in the whole way you show your architecture, which on the other hand is also very, in a way, abstract and personal. So this is something I was wondering, that there is a way of working from the very beginning always. I mean, there is your personal way of conceiving space that is clearly understandable, and it always relates to something that was before. And I wonder if this almost mirror,
Yes.
mirrors, by the way, almost mirror condition is something that you feel you need in every project.
I was saying, but I think it's very pretentious, that I like very much the existing situations, and what I want more is to reveal the things that exist. And when I have a brief, a program, something to build, and I always try to use it in a kind of sense that is going to be useful for the city and is going to be better than the situation that was before. And that was what I tried to do with the cruise terminal, for instance, and to put spaces and situations more available to people. Sometimes I like very much the brief, sometimes I don't like so much, but I try always to reveal what exists. I don't dream with spaces or with forms. I don't have my head full of ideas to build things. I try to arrive to a specific site and to understand what is more interesting there, and then to make something to explain what exists, more or less, is this. I have built a lot, but I don't dream with buildings. I'm not so enthusiastic with buildings. Sometimes I prefer the questions of landscape, the questions of the form of the city and landscape. And I think the buildings and the projects can help us to organize and to explain what exists.
Another question. I like quite a lot the way you approach the existing and just having the respect, not having any obstruction on views, for example,
Yes.
to the old. But the moment you build something, the buildings you create, for example, the terminal, and in that competition about the space close to the River Tejo, this proposal of the buildings next to it. What I can see is very modern approaches of doing a building, not historically, related, just the horizontal lying shapes, not touching the ground. I liked it very much on the castle, for example, the way
Yes.
the old building is just made abstractly, and the shape of the curtain, steel wall around. It was a very beautiful approach. But when you do this building, what is your approach of just creating a building, just the neighborhood of this historical building? Why is it such a aerodynamic form?
Such a
Almost aerodynamic.
aerodynamic.
Flowing shapes and objects.
But for instance, in the castle, I made the competition, I won, and then I spoke with the archaeologist, and I was always thinking that it was not going to be possible. And the archaeologist also told me, we thought it was forbidden. It's our dream to do something like that, but we never thought it was possible. And they liked very much. But this is a kind of reversible construction, as if it was a model. It's not very expensive. And if one day someone wants to take it off, it's completely possible, and we have nothing damaged. And this is a way of freedom, because then you can do what you think it's good, what you think it's possible in a kind of abstract way. But I liked very much, for instance, some years ago, I made a house for my sister, and it was not very different from these Islamic houses. And when they have chosen it to a Biennale in Venice, and in the lecture I showed this house I made for my sister, and also the Islamic houses, because the things are not so different. You have patios, you have walls, you live inside, you are covered. And I like very much this idea of doing the less it is possible, and having a certain freedom, because we are not in that 11th century. We have to build as we can. And if I was introducing something to cover and protect the ruins, I was introducing a completely different design. And like this, I introduced two houses in a kind of archetypal way, and it's maybe easier to understand and to accept and to dream with what was occurring there. And with the other situations is more or less the same. What I like very much is the form of the city and the wall, and then things almost finish. And then you have the empty space to the water. And this is the thing I'm trying to propose in a very simple way, but not very easy to do. Because, for instance, now we are working in the parking area to put it 1 meter and something under the ground, and to create something upon. And that's what I'm working now. It's not easy because we are in a historical area, but we also feel the freedom of the very strong things that happen all around, and so it's not very stressful. Okay, another question?
When it turned out, that you need the extra pillars, did you think about?
Yes.
I don't know, abolishing the design, redesigning it?
No, because I think that pillars are going to be nice when you have the plants all around. But since the plants are not there, it's a little bit a mystery. But I don't think to put them away because it was economically impossible. In an economic sense, it was not possible.
Architects you admire, or maybe you grasp your inspiration from other kinds of art, or Pina Bausch, as you mentioned?
But you referred an architect that I like?
I would be interested in other leading architects whose works you admire.
Okay. No, I like a lot of leading architects. Eh? Yes. And the living architects. There are lots of colleagues that I like very much, and I look very much to the web and to the magazines, and I travel all around, and I prefer the real buildings. I like very much to visit buildings everywhere in the world, because it's very different, the photographs or the buildings that are in the sites and that are built and used. If you want names, I tell you after. Okay, another questions? The other day, an ancient landscape architect, Portuguese, who is 90 now, said something. We went together to a television program that we were not expecting. It was a little bit banal, but we were there. And he said something that I liked very much, that we are ephemerals. We live for 100, 150 years, something like that. And we try to do things that last forever, and maybe this is not right. And I like that. Yes?
Is it evident for you to work together with a landscape architect?
Yes, now I have a landscape architect in my office that works every day with me. And I like very much, and in a round table some time ago, that was in a video for the Biennale de Venice with other colleagues, I said that maybe it was very important, the culture of the landscape architects we have in Portugal, to help us to understand the landscape and the relation between buildings and nature, let's say. And in the beginning, the landscape architects that exist in Portugal came to Germany to learn landscaping architecture 100 years ago. Okay.
Well, it's not a question, but it's a comment. I think it's interesting because, Portugal is a country that has lots of history, and it's interesting because we see that your buildings, and I think it's typical from Portuguese architecture, doesn't try to enter in a competition with what was built before. And I think this is really interesting, and maybe, I don't know, lots of the question that people were doing about why did you put so many maps and so many things that are related with history. I think it's something that is really Portuguese, to think about what we have and to try to not ignore and not to get into a competition with the things we had before. I think it's really nice, a nice attitude to do.
Thank you. Well,
Okay.
we finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
How are you? How are you?
See you
Me too.
many years ago.
Yes.
We aged a little bit, but your work has become
Not so much.